Later this morning, Hunter Biden is expected to plead not guilty to federal charges of lying on an application to buy a gun. President Biden's son was indicted by a grand jury after a judge threw out a plea deal that would have spared him any jail time. Senior investigative correspondent Catherine Herridge is at the courthouse in Wilmington, Delaware, where today's hearing is going to be held. Catherine, good morning.
Good morning, Anne-Marie. 2 months ago, when Hunter Biden came to the federal courthouse behind me, it seemed his legal problems were over. But with the collapse of that plea deal, legal experts tell CBS News his situation now is precarious.
Hunter Biden lost his bid for a virtual hearing today. Instead, a Delaware federal judge ordered him to appear in person, emphasizing he should not receive special treatment.
I think it's a test in some respects of our Justice Department and our federal government's ability to treat defendants equally, to apply the rule of law fairly, neutrally, and impartially.
According to the federal indictment, Hunter Biden is accused of making a false and fictitious statement in 2018 about his drug use on a federal gun form and to a firearms dealer. The third count alleges he did knowingly possess a firearm while on drugs. Hunter Biden has openly admitted his past struggle with addiction, as he told CBS Sunday Morning in 2021.
I went one time for 13 days without sleeping and smoking crack and drinking vodka exclusively throughout that entire time.
The president's son had previously reached an agreement on the charge of gun possession that avoided prosecution if he abided by the terms for 2 years. But in July, that deal, which included misdemeanor tax charges, collapsed. In response to the indictment, Hunter Biden's legal team called the charges excessive, not supported by fact, and alleged the charges reflect political interference by former President Trump and his allies. President Biden has declined to comment on the charges, and the trial could coincide with the 2024 election campaign.
The president's son is being prosecuted by his own administration. So I think it puts the president in a box, and if nothing else, it ensures that this story is not going away.
The ongoing special counsel investigation includes tax and other potential violations. According to court documents, tax charges could be brought in California, where Hunter Biden lives, or in Washington, D.C. You'll recall those IRS whistleblowers were first to tell CBS News they believe the evidence supports felony tax violations in this case, Anne-Marie.
Yet another chapter in what is still a convoluted story for me. What are you going to be focusing on? What are you going to be watching in the courtroom today?
Well, my experience in this courthouse last July is to expect the unexpected. Generally speaking, an initial appearance and arraignment are very procedural. The defendant enters a plea. In this case, we expect not guilty. Then they discuss the terms of release and the bail. But I will be watching very closely to see if the terms of the release are more strict or have expanded since what he faced in July.
I mean, this is a charge based on, him filling out allegedly incorrectly, a document to buy a gun. How much prison time are we talking about for something like that?
Well, there are 3 felony counts here, Anne-Marie. They all relate to the purchase or possession of a handgun. The prosecutors alleged he lied about his drug use in 2018 when he purchased that handgun. If you total them all up, you could be looking at up to 25 years in prison and fines of around $750,000, but he is a first-time offender. There was no violent crime connected to these alleged events, but almost all legal experts I've spoken with say if he is convicted, he should do some jail time, even if it's minimum.
And, you brought up something earlier about the tax charges. I remember when the deal fell apart and these new gun charges were filed, I thought, well, if they found new gun charges, are they also going to find new tax charges? And now there's a possibility he could face charges in California or Washington?
That's correct. Based on the court records, the special counsel has indicated that he's moving towards charging decisions on the tax violations in California, where Hunter Biden lives, or in Washington, D.C. This is a more complex process because the material has to be presented to a grand jury in order to secure these indictments. It sets up a really interesting situation where Hunter Biden is facing the felony gun charges here in Delaware, but then there could be another prosecution running in tandem in a different jurisdiction. That's entirely possible here. It's also possible the parties could agree to consolidate the cases and just try them here in Delaware.
Really interesting. Catherine, thank you.
You're welcome.